Welcome, everyone. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Author Talk hosted by the New York Public Library. My name is Adina, and I am the adult librarian at the Epiphany branch here at NYPL. And today I have the privilege of introducing Tabresia Jones, the YA librarian at the Pelham Parkway Van Nest branch. And she will be in conversation with our very special guest, Shade Lapite, to talk about her YA novel, Goddess Crown. So, the first thing I want to do is just say thank you to everyone who is attending today. We know there are a lot of other things that you could be doing, so we're so happy that you decided to join us for this virtual event. We do welcome people of all ages, teens, adults, educators alike, so we're hoping you will all enjoy this conversation today. And feel free to put any questions that you have for our amazing author in the chat box while Tabresia is interviewing her, and we will try to get to as many of those at the end as we can. We do just ask that if you're using our chat box, you please be mindful of adhering to the library's general policies and rules, which is basically just be respectful to all attendees and panelists. Okay, so I know we've been in this virtual space for a while, but we do just want to quickly go over some Google Meet features. This event is being recorded, but you as the viewer are not being recorded. You are welcome to have your camera on or off. We do just ask that you keep yourself muted, so there's no background noise, and those are controlled with the icons that look like a microphone and a camera. And then if you would like to turn on captions for this event, you can do that using the transcript option. And you can also put any questions you have in the chat box. Looks like a little text bubble at the bottom of your screen. If you have a big reaction to anything that's said, you can drop an emoji like a heart that Tabresia just gave me. Thank you, using the little emoji icon on the bottom of your screen. Okay, so if you have not had a chance to get your hands on Goddess Crown yet and you're wondering how to get it, we encourage you to get it from the library, of course. You can get books digitally or in person. We have reopened all of our branches except those undergoing renovations. So you can find the closest branch to you and you can put the book on hold, have it waiting for you when you get there. You can get ebooks using one of our 3 e-reading apps. And if you hold on to your book for a little bit too long because it's just so good, no worries. The New York Public Library does not charge any late fines anymore. So you just will bring your book back when you are done with it. Okay, so the New York Public Library celebrates Black History Month throughout February with events and programs, recommended reading, blog posts, and a wide array of resources for all ages. I encourage you to check out the library's website. Tabresia just put it in the chat box for me. Thank you. And also, if I am saying too much too fast, don't worry. All the information is on the library website, which Tabresia has been putting the links in the chat. So no need to be jotting down what I'm saying. Okay, and then we do just want to take a minute to talk about some upcoming programs that we have. Our monthly virtual book tasting will be Friday, February 23rd, and that will be me and Tabresia again, if anyone's looking for inspiration for what to read. And then there will be an author talk with Daniel Warren Johnson, February 27th. And then you can also check out the virtual comics chat, which is a collaboration between a few libraries, and that will be Wednesday, February 28th. And all the links to register for those events are in the chat. Okay, so I am now going to pass it along to Tabresia to introduce our featured author. So without further ado, take it away, Tabresia.
Hello, thank you, Adina, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tabresia Jones, and I am the Young Adult Librarian of the Pelham Parkway Van Nest branch that's located in the Bronx as part of the New York Public Library. And I have the extreme pleasure of introducing our special guest today, YA author Shade Lapite. So, Shade, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I wanted to give a short bio of our special guest. So Shade Lapite is a British Nigerian and has drawn on her heritage to create the world of her debut novel, Goddess Crown. She spent a significant slice of her childhood nestled in the library, inhaling books by Diana Wynne Jones, Tamara Pierce, Lois Duncan, and Mildred D. Taylor. Her love for the arts led her to a degree in media arts at Royal Holloway, University of London. She now lives in Toronto and juggles writing with her career in digital marketing. Her blog, Coffee Bookshelf, celebrates writing and promotes titles by authors of color. You can find her fangirling over Korean dramas on Twitter at The Shady Files or sharing her favorite books on Instagram at Shade Lapite. So thank you again, Shade, for joining us today. And you will have a lot in common with our friend Whitney because she likes Korean dramas as well.
Excellent. Always happy to find another fan.
So congratulations on your YA debut novel, Goddess Crown, which came out last year in the US, but it just made its debut in the UK. So congratulations, double again.
Thank you.
So for those who have not had the chance to read Goddess Crown, could you give us a brief synopsis of what the book is about?
Of course. So it's about a girl who's 16 years old and she has been raised in a very secluded setup, basically in a forest with a handful of guardians who take care of her. And one day her home is attacked by paid mercenaries and she's forced to go on the run in order to save her life. And while she's on the run, she's trying to figure out basically who she is. She's never met her parents. So who are my parents? Where are they? Who's trying to kill me? Who are my enemies? And yeah, she just basically wants to know who she is and basically who is attacked my home. So these questions take her to the capital city, Port Caspian, which is where the royal court is, a place of great opulence, but also great danger. And yeah, she's got to face a whole new set of foes there.
And this is just like, I continue to say that, and Adina knows this, I am not a big fan of fantasy. Like, I really like stay away from it. But when I encounter a fantasy book that I'm like, oh, this is great, and I just dive in and makes me forget about it, I always try to highlight it because I'm not a big fantasy reader. And this one, it just like had so much great world building, like the world that was just that was being described here. A great main character. I absolutely love Calithea. I want to be her best friend. And she's that feisty girl that you just want to have by your side.
It really is, yeah.
And there's just like a couple of things that I definitely want to talk about the book. So, but first off, who designed this awesome cover?
It's an illustrator called Jeff Manning, and he's done such a fantastic job. Like every time I look at it, it's so gorgeous, and it screams opulence and royalty and kind of grandeur and everything, right? So no, he did such a fantastic job. Thank you, Jeff.
This is like amazing. I was like, this is beautiful. This is like Black girl magic. This is what we all want to be.
It really is.
It's gorgeous. And I was like, I had to commend on the book. That was like the first thing I did. I was like, who did the book cover? Because it's awesome. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
But not only the book cover is beautiful, but the story itself. So we talked a little bit about this in your bio that you took from your heritage, but what else gave you the inspiration to come up with Goddess Crown?
So like the first draft of it, basically I was doing a writing challenge called for National Novel Writing Month, which happens every November, and you have to write 50,000 words in 30 days. So it's like you've really got to be just powering away in order to get that number of words down. So I thought I need a really strong sort of premise in order to write these words. And I'd seen one of the films about Queen Elizabeth I, and I thought, I like this idea of you having a king who has his queen executed, and then the child, like, will the child end up on the throne? She's sort of ostracized. Are you the are you basically like a royal child, or is your parentage different, right? And then I thought, what if you threw in some, some mercenaries, and you've got some, she's actually got to run for her life and that kind of thing. You mixed it up all together, then what would that lead to? So that was kind of the idea for the book, and then for the story. And once I'd kind of written that out and drafted it a few times, I started messing with the setting and eventually ended up in a sort of fantasy West Africa.
It's interesting that you mentioned Elizabeth I, because now I'm making that connection. I'm like, this could be Henry VIII's story.
It's subtle, but it's in there.
But just with fantasy, and just still has the court intrigue, but just like with fantasy and mythology and African folklore, it just has all the things that we really strive for books to have in the 21st century. And you you touched base, like saying that it takes place in West Africa, and but what other were there other like mythology or African folklore that like what tales and legends did you like incorporate into Goddess Crown?
The interesting thing is, obviously, I grew up in the UK, so there's sort of a bit of a distance between my sort of African heritage and my day-to-day life. So, our family would make visits to Nigeria to visit like my grandmothers, and so I get a bit of a flavor of sort of life in Nigeria, and I wanted to weave some of that stuff in. So there's things like the fabrics that they wear, the drumming that I have, often like in any sort of important moments, there's an oracle in there who sort of gives you auspicious dates for, okay, a coronation should happen on this date. And so then there's an idea of sense of being careful of what eating certain foods and that kind of thing, just for safety, because you never know. So I kind of mixed those things, infused those things in, but also made up a lot of mythology as well, to kind of bridge the gap of things that I didn't necessarily know about African folklore, but also to just, because fantasy, you can kind of do what you want and you can create your own world. So I have things like the caves that she goes into, and sort of on a bit of a challenge, and that sense of like the caves being a bit of transformation, that you go in one way and you sort of come out a different way. And the bird, this very unique, rarely seen bird that is almost like a kingmaker, of if you're able to see this bird or obtain one of its eggs, you could be the next person on the throne. So I did a bit of sort of creating of mythology and then weaving in just aspects of Nigerian sort of Yoruba life as well.
It just, you seem like to incorporate everything that you can think of, and also like top it off with your imagination. And you are the second person who has said that with the fantasy world, you could just create, you could be creative. You have no limits. There is not like constraints like with just general fiction or even romance or the mystery genre. It's just like in the fantasy, anything goes. Is that like one of the reasons why you gravitate towards the fantasy genre instead of just like doing a general like historical fiction book? He's like, let me add a little fantasy in it to make it like to spice up things in the story.
I think that is one of the things that I really like about fantasy, that you don't have to be limited by the world that we live in and the rules and the history that's happened here, which, is not necessarily, depending on what era you're thinking about, is not necessarily the most empowering, especially for a Black girl. So, the idea that you can set up a world with its own rules and you can do what you want in that world, and you can empower who you want, like that is so attractive and compelling to me.
I think if I keep reading more fantasy books, like the ones I have enjoyed, including this one, maybe I will see it, because the fantasy books I've read, it just got so daunting and I got very frustrated. I was like, I don't know where you're going with this. This is too out there for me.
It's great that there's such a range of fantasy now. So whatever kinds of fantasy you like, we're starting to see that, that whatever you're interested in, you can probably find a writer who's writing in that area for you, which is great, because it means as a reader, you have so much more range, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's some fantasies like probably an unpopular opinion, The Lord of the Rings. I cannot get into it. You can show me the movies, you could show me the books. I will be bored out of my mind. I have no idea what's going on, but and maybe Tolkien is not for me. It's that kind of fantasy. That's very
Mm.
high fantasy. And the world he's created was great. It's amazing. It's just it doesn't pull me to it because there's
Mm.
just so much going on in it. And but you do have to really like admit that it was a rule breaking. There were no rules in
Yeah.
creating that world, and it was just like it was amazing. It's just to me, I don't get it. I'm
Right.
so
Not everything isn't for everybody. Absolutely.
sorry. And and you mentioned that you're seeing like we're a different range of fantasy right now, and this is like great segue into my next question: romantasy. So this is a term that's currently being coined by publishers, especially fans of Sarah J. Maas, with the Court of Thorns and Roses, another fantasy series that I had to give up because she just went too far. Uh, but how I wanted to ask you because you recently were on a panel at Waterstones because I saw on your social media for
Mhm.
YA Romantasy, and I wanted to ask like how do you what is your take on this romantasy like genre, and
Mm.
why do you think that there is this all of a sudden a like a the rise in popularity behind not only romantasy but fantasy in general, because we're seeing like a lot more books just being published in the fantasy genre.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways I kind of feel like romantasy has been around for a while, because a lot of genres are mixed and blended with romance anyway, and maybe some people have only just noticed that there's a bunch of fantasy stories with some romance in it. Personally, I feel like every story should have romance, because why not? It's just like this icing on every cake, and let's put romance into everything. So I love reading romance. I really, I like things with a happy ending, and things where people think about, they interrogate their own feelings and they care about the feelings of other people. So romance is a genre that I enjoy. And then I also really enjoy reading and writing fantasy, because again, you can do anything with it. You can mix it. I really like historical fantasy as well. You take a little bit of history and then you kind of broaden it out, and you can say things about our world and the systems and structures in it without being dead on the nose about it, kind of thing. So then the idea of sort of taking fantasy and mixing it with romance just makes perfect sense to me, and I feel like we should absolutely just have way more of it. So well in favor of it.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, it has to be a good story for me. Like it can't. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's fundamental anyway, because if it's not a good story, you're going to stop reading after a few chapters anyhow. So I feel like, you've already got a good story personally, and not everybody likes romance, which I find baffling to me because I love romance so much, but it's fair enough. And some people are like, why is there always romance in a fantasy story, and they would prefer to not have a romantic story in there. And maybe it's a thing that publishers push a bit more, but because I like those two genres, it's not a problem for me. But I can see how some people might be like, maybe we should keep these two things separate.
But I mean, you did bring up an interesting point because we have always seen romance and fantasy joined together, and now we're just seeing it becoming really popular, because even when Sarah J. Maas books first came out, they were popular, but not to the extent as it is right now. And also including other books like Children of Blood and Bone.
Mm.
And then you can even go far as back as the Twilight series. Like that was kind of like the first like romantasy, because it was even whatever your take on vampires is.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I
like
mean, one of my favorite authors is Diana Wynne Jones, and she's writing in sort of the 70s and 80s. And Howl's Moving Castle has, it's not the romance is sort of very much in the background, and you don't see until the last few chapters, but it's sort of a thread running through it too. So so I think that, again, like, as long as there's been fantasy, there have been, you know, romance running through it. And again, it doesn't have to be an equally, it could be a B thread, it could even be a C thread, like it's way in the background. You know, The Hobbit has romance in it somewhere bubbling back at, you know. So I think there, you know, since the beginning of fantasy, there's been romance.
I will take your word for that. You said The Hobbit has, because I was like, I really fell asleep. I was like, I can't do this.
They're walking and they're looking, they're looking and they're walking.
No, and then it's like, and then like when I was like watching the first movie of The Lord of the Rings, at the end, I was like, wait a minute. Did they destroy the ring? And they're like, no, there's 2 more movies. Like, what? I have to do this and not watch it.
There's more.
Destroy the ring at the end. We could have a whole discussion about it. But let's go back to Goddess Crown. And like I said, one of my favorite things is Galatea. Like, she's one of my favorite characters. She's like, she's a very strong and determined character. Like, I know a lot of writers, they take a lot of the characters based on people from their personal lives. So I don't know if Galatea is based on someone in your life, like her characteristics or personality. Is she based on anyone personally?
I think that in terms of like her kind of seeing this girl and not thinking that she's going to amount to much, and or that she's going to be particularly tough to overcome, I feel like that kind of came from, I really enjoyed Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the TV show Veronica Mars, and like that kind of sort of kick-ass character, you know, I really liked. But then also, you know, sort of her being very determined and very outspoken, but also sort of fighting for what she wants, but with a smile and with a but still being compassionate and kind. I feel like I channeled my mother for that, because she's really good at, she's getting her own way and powering through things, but, you know, while cooking you delicious food and also smiling. So that mixture of, you're like, what's just happened here? She's triumphed again, but it's okay somehow.
I think you found your perfect Mother's Day gift. So when you get this recording, just splice
there
the
we
video.
go. Thank you, Mom.
So, and I love the connection you made with Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Veronica Mars. I love Veronica Mars. I love that TV show. Got canceled too soon. And yeah, it was, I could see that. I can see she's definitely, Galatea is like definitely Buffy, and also definitely Veronica. Because she's determined to find the truth, even no matter like whatever obstacles are in her way. She's like, no, I'm going to find out what happened to my parents. I'm going to find out why these people are coming after me. So yeah, I can definitely see that. So after our audience members and teen readers read Goddess Crown, are there any other books that you would recommend if they were looking for some good read-alikes for it?
Oh, okay. Reader likes. That's good. I mean, you've already mentioned Tommy Adeyemi, Children of Blood and Bone, and that whole series. And I know she's still writing it, and that's just beautifully sort of built up and built out. And it's kind of, you know, a similar world in that it's the sort of Yoruba lands of pre-colonial era. So Tommy Adeyemi is a definite recommendation. I read not too long ago a book called Iron Widow by Shiran J. Shao, and I felt like this, you know, she's basically sort of a concubine who has to become like a partner to a pilot, and it basically uses her life force to power these machines, and there's wars and there's battles, and she's very tough and very feminist and determined to achieve her own goals. And I think that that's just beautifully done, and that kind of idea of sort of historical fiction, obviously in Asia this time, but a strong feminist heroine is beautiful, and kind of the same kind of era, I guess, kind of vibe that I was going for as well. So I feel like those are probably my two big recommendations. There is, I'm thinking of another one, that there's one that I've seen that's coming out this year that is, I think it's based on the story of Persephone, but it's set in 1400s Yoruba land. And I'm trying to remember the title of the book, but I saw it on Twitter and I was like, I love this and I cannot wait for this to come out. And again, it felt like the kind of world that I had been working in. I will try to remember before the end of our chat what the name of that book is and the title, but it like, I feel like, again, there's so many, Twitter is great for this. I try to put recommendations up on my book blog as well, but there's so many good books coming out, and so many ones set in sort of historical West Africa. So I'll dig out that title for you.
Well, definitely, because I love every retelling of Persephone and Hades, because I feel like that relationship is, you could just dive in and you could tell it so many times.
That's it.
So definitely. Have you read Lore Olympus?
No.
Oh my God, you need to read Lore Olympus.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Add in to my TBR pile. Must read.
Yes, Lore Olympus. Oh, you absolutely love it. Oh my God, it's so good. No, so thank you. That's really great recommendations. So wanted to talk about you being as a writer, because you're saying you work in digital marketing, but you are a part-time writer. So what is your writing process like? So you said that you did NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, but and congrats for completing that, because not a lot of authors can do it, including myself. I have never been able to complete it. What is your writing process like? Are you more of a plotter or a pantser?
I'm a beautiful mix of the two. So I feel like I've tried both. I've tried plotting the whole thing out and found that doesn't work for me. I've tried pantsing my way through it. That doesn't work. So now I do a little bit of both. I'll plot it out, like, and have an outline of this is what I'm going to write about. And this is sort of the beginning, the middle, and the end in just sort of large strokes. Then I'll start writing. And then as I write, the world will come, into more like greater detail kind of thing. And I'll have a better sense of the characters and how the story's playing out. And then I'll go back to plotting a bit and be like, right, let me break down the chapters that are coming up. So I'll kind of go back and forth between the pantsing and the plotting. And I find that tends to work for me. And I write everything down. I can't just visualize things in my head. I need it on paper, and then I have to print it out. I've got to put it somewhere where I can see it. I have a lot of notebooks.
I'm seeing like a big bulletin board or message board with
Yes.
post-its. Okay.
Yeah, I have a huge notice board in my room, and it's comes up to my shoulder, like it's massive, and then it's really wide, so I can just put everything out.
That's awesome. It's just like, I like hearing what different things, like what writers do. I've heard bulletin boards, post-its. One author says Google Sheets, like she has so many Google Sheets and tabs, and that's how she plots her stories. So what is your favorite part about being a writer? Like, what do you enjoy most about it?
There's so many things. I feel like this is the first time having the book actually come out into the world and in people's hands. And so I've been able to discover a whole new set of things. So, I mean, like, I enjoy writing anyway. I think that sometimes it helps me to process thoughts by just putting it down on paper. So one of the things I enjoy about being a writer is the actual writing, and also being able to think, I've had an idea about this and I can actually turn this into a story. One of the things I found with Goddess Crown that I really liked was I was doing a lot of research on historical West Africa and discovering a lot of things. And so, like, when I learned about, say, people living in mud huts, and it's like, well, the reason why you live in a mud hut or clay hut is because the clay acts like a sort of natural thermostat for the property, right? So during the day, it absorbs the sun's heat and keeps the interior cool, and then in the evening, it releases that heat and warms up the interior. And I'm like, that is so clever, and it's just this naturally found material, so it's sustainable. And I'm like, that's fabulous. And I'm like, I should tell people about this. I can just put this into the book. So that's one of the things I like about being a writer, is just being a conduit for things I've discovered. I'm like, I'm going to put this in the book, and now everybody who reads it's going to know this too. So that's one of the things. But I also I'm really enjoying meeting people who've read the book and just hearing their thoughts about it as well. So that's a new aspect I've discovered that I really like.
Yeah, I did not know about the clay huts. That is a very awesome thing. I was like, wait, what? How does that work? I think it's just like you're in that your 21st century kind of mind. It's like, that's clay. No, we have to do by brick or wood and stuff. Like, where are the three little pigs? We're gonna do it by
Yeah, no, you wouldn't think, right? And you think, right, well, that's why people have been using this material for centuries across various continents, because we went to Mexico and found the same, kind of building materials in indigenous communities and things. So, it's like, and it makes sense in tropical places. I'm like, that's brilliant.
That's what we need right now. That's like, maybe, I mean, it wouldn't completely solve the homeless crisis, but it's a start.
It's a start.
So what type of book, you talked a little bit about this, but what type of books, since you've written a YA book, like what type of books did you read as when you were a teen? So like when teen audience members takes a look at this recording, they could see like other recommendations that they can get at the library.
I really enjoyed, I really like Paula Danziger, and I felt like her books were, just sort of day-to-day life. I'm a high school student or whatever, I'm going to camp, and these are the things I'm encountering or whatever, and they were just kind of sweet and heartwarming. I liked, Lois Duncan, who would write about sort of, I would say, suspense, thrillerish, with a fantastical edge to it. Diane Wynne Jones, love her books. I feel like her fantasy world building is so intricate, and so like she kind of drew on her sort of Welsh background, and I feel like her characterization and her storylines, you never knew how it was going to end. So clever. Louise Lawrence, I find her books are a bit harder to find now, but she would write sort of post-apocalyptic fiction and sort of things like about climate change and sustainability and that kind of thing. But her books were so compelling. Also, a lot of space operas that she wrote too. So Louise Lawrence was great. And I feel like there's one more person that I'm trying to remember who in my Tamora Pierce. I usually, whenever I fly, I always have a copy of Tamora Pierce's book in my bag, and she would write fantasy, and her books are, quite thin, but I found that she's able to squeeze so much plot and so much characterization and tell a brilliant story in books that are not very thick. So they're great for, just putting into my travel bag. But I feel like when I'm writing, I'm often trying to channel, I'm like, how would Tamora Pierce write this? Because, she says a little and it says so much, and there's always layers to it. So like the sword fights and the swashbuckling and that kind of sense of, sort of fantasy worlds that she builds, I feel like I'm often trying to channel her. So this is a huge recommendation.
Is that where like you got a lot of your action-packed scenes from?
Yes, I think I do. I was like, she's got to have a sword. I've always wanted to, Tamora Pierce's characters have swords. She needs a sword.
I could sense of like when, as you were describing like the action-packed scenes, I'm like, that's where she got it from.
I feel like Tamora Pierce is going to pick up this book one day and be like, you owe me money because you borrowed way too much. And I'll be like, it's a homage.
It's like I'm tributing you. It's like, here, thank you for I enjoyed your books when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
I do remember Lois Duncan. I was shocked when I found out she wrote "I Know What You Did Last Summer." I was like, what? That was not an idea that Hollywood came up.
Yeah, no, Locked in Time, like her books are great. I think there was ones about, sort of being able to travel out of your own body, like, and Yeah, her books are so good.
She written so much, and I was like, and yeah, she was like really spearheading the thriller and suspense for
Yeah.
for teen genre, and that was, yeah, she was a really great writer. Um,
Oh, I should mention Mildred D. Taylor. In the UK, we often did like maybe Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry, or Let the Circle Be Unbroken in secondary school. Mildred D. Taylor, again, her books are set in sort of the 1930s, in sort of segregated Mississippi, and I feel like she was able to encapsulate like the just the prejudice and the racism at that time in a way that young people can really understand and can empathize with. So her books are amazing.
okay. Oh, thank you for that. I do remember that. I never got a chance to read Mildred's books when I was younger, but it is still, thankfully, still in print and
Yes.
still very popular. So, and it's still a necessary read. So, what kind of things do you like to do when you're not writing? So we know that you have a job. You could talk about your job if you want to. But we wanted to know about Sade. Like, what does she do when she is not gracing us with hopefully more books like Goddess
Working
Crown?
on it. I really enjoy reading. Actually genuinely, so I like listening to audiobooks and I have my e-reader. I like blog about books, so I do book reviews. And so I'm enjoying sort of recording the, videos and putting them on YouTube. That's fun. I like walking and I find a lot of ideas kind of percolate in my mind while I'm out for walks. I like taking long walks. And just also meeting friends, for catching up with people, because I feel like you have to be quite intentional about, look, let's make a plan, let's meet up, let's have lunch, let's have dinner, let's do a thing or whatever. So just staying in touch with people. My other big love is Korean dramas, which just me and Netflix have this love affair going on right now, where I'm like, you keep on supplying me with the best Korean dramas and I keep on watching them, and this is beautiful relationship. So yes, loving that. I think that Korea has just picked up the mantle of the rom-com that Hollywood has kind of been like, do people still want to? It's like, yeah, we still want to watch rom-coms, and South Korea is making them, and I'm here for it.
So we're definitely meant to meet because you have all the same things that I love doing.
Yes, besties, that's it.
I'm still trying to get into Korean dramas. I am more of a I watch British TV shows and British drama more than anything else. But Korean, Whitney, my friend Whitney, she keeps tweeting. She's like, "Oh my god, I just watched this Korean drama. It's like amazing."
You gotta try, add it to your watch list to mix it up
I
with British dramas.
I have to. Yeah, I do. I mean, British dramas will always have a place
Oh,
in but I do love walking. I cannot wait for spring because I'm done with winter. I want to be able to take my boots off, put sneakers on, and just walk about because I can walk as many times as I can. As Adina knows, and Adina, let's be quiet about a little story that she's probably gonna give about me walking. um, so like I said, are there any other like upcoming projects? Because I would love to see more of the universe of Goddess Crown. So if you are able to talk about it,
the
are there any upcoming projects?
Goddess Crown is sort of a standalone story, but there is going to be at least another story in the world of Gala. So, and there may be cameos from characters that we've seen before. So that's what I'm working on at the moment, is the second book in that world. Um, right.
Would you ever think about, so you said that you're not the first writer who has said like, oh, it has been meant to be a standalone, and then all of a sudden they come out and say, oh, hey everyone, I got 2 books in the works out of the sequel.
This is true. Never say never, right? So at the moment, at this point, on February 15th, 2024, it's supposed to be a standalone. However, I reserve the right to later be like, you know what, there's going to be a sequel.
Yes, I've heard it before because people have, like, writers have said, like, yeah, I guess, because people kept asking me and I came up with the idea.
Yeah, I can see how that happens. Sometimes you're like, I didn't know I had more story to tell for this character, and actually now I've thought of more, and so actually that journey will continue. So I can see how that would happen. Yeah, never say never. There we go.
I hope so, because I mean, I will be very interested. Like, I will definitely read like a book that is set in the world of Gala, but I think like Calathea's story is not done. I feel like there's more to it. And maybe because I'm just being greedy, but I feel like there's more stories.
You know what? I love that. And I feel like, I mean, after I wrote the first draft for, like, you know, the writing challenge, and I put the manuscript away and I was like, I'm done with it. And I felt like Calathea kept on talking to me and was like, but what if I did this? And what if this happened? And what if, you know, how would I handle this situation? And I kept on bringing it out. And it's just exactly as you're describing there, where, you know, maybe there's so much more that she could, you know, her venture's only begun in a way. So again, it could happen.
I hope so. And I expect like to have an acknowledgement page saying like, hey, Tabrisha Jones gave me the idea.
She told me so. I just, you know, as I collect my whatever, you know, award, I'll be like, I just want to give a shout out and thanks to Tabrisha Jones.
Hey, thank you. That's all I want. So Miss Stamp has said that she also loves K-dramas too, Scarlet Heart, Rio, and crime dramas like Tunnel and Signal.
Oh, lovely. Well, thank you for being in the fold. Now, I've heard about Tunnel, and it sounds like I do watch the gentle sort of rom-coms and things. That one sounds a little harrowing, but friends have been telling me I must watch it. So thank you for the recommendations.
It sounds really interesting. So, like Sade says, I have to start adding it to my list. My Netflix account. Dr. Yvette has a question for me. What British dramas would I recommend? And to Sade, did any British TV or films influence anything in your writing? So why don't you go first, and then I will answer.
Oh, that's interesting. Anything in my writing? Off the top of my head, like, I feel like my favorite British TV show is probably EastEnders. There's something about the grittiness of just these people who live in the East End, and their lives are always a complete mess. And maybe in comparison, you feel like I'm actually okay in comparison to this mess. But no, I can't think of anything that that's directly influenced my writing. But I'm gonna keep thinking about that. But yeah,
Oh, that is a good question.
a really good question.
So for me, I could go on. So I'm just gonna leave like my top 5. So first is I love British mystery dramas. So a lot of them are going to be mysteries. So the first one is Midsummer Murders. I could watch that all day, rewatch it over and over again. Absolutely love it. Second is Death in Paradise. If the new season dropped today, yay! On BritBox, yay! I'm watching it when I get home. So I absolutely love Death in Paradise. There was something I do like, The Bay. That's also on I can watch it on BritBox. And I love Sherlock. I could watch that all the time.
Yes, so well done.
Yeah, and so yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Those four.
That's a good lineup. I've got an answer to that, right? But in terms of any British dramas or films impacting my writing, I feel like the one of the things that I was thinking of when I first came up with the character was the film Elizabeth First, The Golden Age. And there's a scene where Kate Blanchett is standing like in the royal court, and she's got, I think, a Spanish ambassador in front of her, and she shouts at him, you know, they're talking about the Armada is heading for British shores, right? And she's like, I too can command the wind. And just that idea of this really strong, powerful woman in a court surrounded by men who is just defiant and just so confident of herself. I feel like that's one of the things that I was channeling when I was writing her character, that this is where I want her to get to in terms of, you know, that you will not hold me back in, you know, your limitations or what you think I can do will not be my story, kind of thing. So yeah.
I think your next book needs to like write a different version of Elizabeth I's story, and also like how she got to the throne, and maybe she starts wielding a special sword and just like
Let's give her a sword. Let's give her a sword.
just give her a sword.
Yeah,
Like shooting down her father. It's like, you killed my mother.
that's it.
So I just gave you another idea.
I'm keeping notes so we can say I can I can thank you.
Yes, please get the board, get the post-its, so I will look for that acknowledgement, and I will.
Absolutely.
So I have two more questions for you before we end this conversation, which has been absolutely wonderful. So you we writers have like many experiences, whether they're traveling or they're working. So are there any experiences that you've had in your life that you would like to explore in any future writing projects?
I don't know if that there's specific experiences that I would explore, but I feel like a lot of my travel kind of, especially travel, kind of ends up in my writing. In that, when I was writing the cave scenes in Goddess Crown, I'd taken a trip to Mexico and we'd gone through this cave system, and just like the kind of eeriness and the aloneness of that, but also like just that the atmosphere there was what I then put into the book. And when I was in India, looking at the palaces there, that's, you know, that's what I was thinking of when I sort of was describing the royal court. And then also made a trip to Kenya and sort of going through their wildlife areas. And again, they had a lot of architecture that was sort of round huts and thatched roofs. And so I feel like whenever I'm out and about, I'm always looking and thinking and like, oh, wouldn't that be interesting? And then when I sit down to write, it sort of just appears in the writing. So I think I'm constantly pulling things in.
So it's like you're walking and you just like taking in the world, and just comes in up and you see something, and just the idea pops in your head, and when you're sitting, that's when it comes out.
Yes.
Lovely. So I know I said two more questions, but now it's two more questions because I just thought of the next question. And then this is my second to last question, and then I'll be asking the last question. So this is a young adult book. So I would like to ask, like, what would you want teen readers, when they check out this book, what do you want them to take away from Goddess Crown? What do they want? What do you want them to get from it?
I mean, I feel like it's a good fun adventure, right? And I feel like, you know, that hopefully they'll just enjoy being in the world of Gala and enjoy going on this journey with Calathea and seeing where it takes her, but also that they'll sort of take in the message that she sort of figured her way through, that again, people projecting onto you and telling you what your limitations are and what your potential is, it shouldn't be something that you then internalize. Like figure out what your limitations are yourself and what your potential is yourself. You can travel as far as you want if you if you want it enough, kind of thing, right? So I think that's that kind of message of you decide the parameters of your own potential.
Oh, perfect. That's just like, that's a perfect clip to highlight the book. But you have another opportunity for another clip. So this is my last question. So as librarians, we have to do what is called a book talk. It is a short commercial pitch for a book to encourage the patrons of our library to check out the book out of our collection. So we do this with all our special guest authors. We turn the tables onto you, and we're going to ask you to do a 1 minute book talk or commercial pitch of God is Crowned. So so people who are currently in the audience and also will be watching this recording later would go out to check out God is Crowned. So whenever you are ready, you can go ahead.
Okay, might not need a whole minute. Okay. Hi, I'm Shade Lapite. My debut novel, Goddess Crown, is about a girl, Calathea, who's 16 years old, who is bold and who is daring. She's been raised in seclusion, away from the world, by a handful of guardians. But when mercenaries attack her home, she's forced to go on the run to save her life. And she has to discover who her enemies are, where her parents are, and who she really is. It's full of adventure, sword fights, romance, and some incredibly gorgeous outfits. It's a ton of fun. You should absolutely read it.
Wonderful. You were all professional. You had like the book and you're just like, oh, good, yes. Okay, Adina, you can bring up the slides. You go to yes, okay. So you heard it from Sade. Oh, yes, you heard it from Sade. Make sure to go check out God is Crown. It is available in our New York Public Library collection, available in print and in ebook format. So this is a great West African adventure, fantasy adventure that you definitely want to get your hands on. It is definitely a great read. You can go to the next slide. And please join us. That is the wrong date. I am so sorry. Please join us next month. We will be welcoming back international best-selling author Farida Abike Iyumide. She will be talking about her latest YA thriller, Where Sleeping Girls Lie. She is the author of the book Ace of Spades, which I absolutely loved. So this is definitely going to be a great talk. So this is not happening today at 3 p.m. It is happening next month on Friday, March 29th at 3:30 p.m. And Adina just put in the registration link. It's happening over Zoom. So you have to register through Zoom in order to get the link. You can go to the next slide. So thank you so much, Sade, for joining us this afternoon. This was such a wonderful conversation that I had.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a ton of fun.
Oh, great. And thank you for everyone joining us this afternoon. We have a special giveaway going on. If you stop at the Van Ness Library, we are giving away a free copy of Goddess Crown. You want to get your hands on this very beautiful cover. And also take the time to follow us on social media and also Sade. She is on Instagram. If you need more Korean drama pics, please follow her on Twitter. You have her handle there and also her website. And Adina has also put the catalog link into the chat. And also take the time, like I said, to follow us, the library on social media. Helen Parkway Van Ness and Epiphany are on both Facebook and on Instagram. So thank you, Sade, so much. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your afternoon to join this author talk. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.